in my lifetime. This is of a generation. Possibly it was historic. When you start to fill the subway tunnels with salt water, much of the Con Ed equipment is in the tunnels, is underground. When hot electrical equipment hits cold salt water, that is a bad combination. And that is a design flaw, I believe, for our system now, if you anticipate these extreme weather conditions. Obviously, we didn't when we designed this system. We did not anticipate water coming over the...
Okay, things are getting into other pieces of information, more historic at this point, so we're going to dip out and continue to monitor what the governor's press conference is going on and saying here on 1010 Wins. Let's just update you on where we are here with Superstorm Sandy. Power is out to millions. 17 deaths have been reported, including 10 in the New York City area specifically, and Governor Cuomo has indicated there are 15 deaths statewide in New York, so this death toll is going to continue to rise. There was a huge 6-alarm fire in Breezy Point in the Rockaways. It destroyed between 800 and 100 homes. The president has declared a major disaster in the city, Long Island, and New Jersey. Sandy wreaking havoc on the entire subway system. 7 subway tunnels under the East River have flooded, and the Battery Tunnel in Brooklyn and Queens Midtown Tunnel also facing
pattern that can shock me at this point. And I think that has to be our attitude. And now, how do we redesign our systems and our infrastructure, assuming that?
You got a senior vice president for Con Ed said that it would take up to 2 weeks to restore power to about 350,000 New York City residents who lost power for the first set of reasons down low. Are you okay with that timetable?
No, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with 2 weeks for downed lines because of tree limbs. I mean, that is a wholly predictable situation, right? That we've been dealing with for years and years, and that would be poor planning on my part. That's it. Salt water in subway tunnels at an amount that you've never seen before and no one has ever seen, that would be different. But a couple of weeks for what was entirely predictable would be unacceptable.
We're going to have to wrap up questions with one more because we have to get going.
Good morning. May I have your attention, please? This is Law Command Station. Just be advised that we have short electrical spikes, but everything is running normally. I repeat, just be aware we have small electrical spikes.
For those of you who were wondering if things have returned to normal, we have now had the official announcement that everything has been returned to normal. There are 2 costs. One is the cost to government. I spoke to the president twice yesterday, and I'm literally going to excuse myself now because I have a scheduled call with the president again. The cost to government of the emergency repair operations. These operations that we are conducting are very, very expensive. The repair to the subway tracks are very expensive. The National Guard operations are expensive. The state police operations are expensive. The NYPD operations are expensive. And in the midst of this crisis, from my point of view, I need to know who's going to pay the bill because the state already has $1 billion deficit. So knowing who's going to pay the cost is important, an important piece of information to make these types of decisions. The federal government will, I believe, reimburse the overwhelming majority of the government costs. That's emergency costs, reconstruction costs. So the federal government will bear those costs. State government, local governments will bear a small portion. Second set of costs are the cost of the private sector. Wall Street was closed today. Hopefully it's open tomorrow. Small businesses have suffered. People are not going to work. So there's a cost to the overall economy that is not a government cost, that is not going to be reimbursed. Part of what we're trying to do here is getting the city and the metropolitan area up and running as quickly as possible, so that cost is minimized. What it actually is at the end of the day, we don't know. At this point, I don't anticipate that it would be staggering.
Governor, what can the private sector eventually get from, in terms of aid from the state or from the federal government for this responsibility to address economic damage or indirect damage?
Federal government has a very elaborate set of programs through FEMA. That's the phone number that I gave, the FEMA hotline, 800-621-3362. They run small business programs to reimburse small business for damages. They run home ownership programs to reimburse homeowners for flooding damages, etc. And I would encourage homeowners who have had a home damage, small business owners, they should contact FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, for those costs. That's not really what the state or the local government does. That's basically a FEMA program.
We have to close it here. There'll be more specific information available from MTA on the subway system.
Okay, I just wanted to drive through.
Cost that's not the cost we're paying for what you described in the other market. So building some of these systems in a way where we're not going to get usually or hit by events like this in the future.
No, those are basically the reconstruction repair costs of the system that was. What I'm talking about is let's learn from this situation and let's start to design an approach that would have redundancy. For example, the Langone Hospital. The East River was past First Avenue. We were going east on 34th Street and ran into the East River between 1st and 2nd Avenue, which means the Langone Hospital, that whole basement, that whole up to the 1st floor was underwater. That's why the generator failed, because all those systems are normally in the basement of the building. That's the way we design in this region. You fill the basement with water, you flood the foundation, the generator's out. That is a new orientation for us. I've worked in parts of the country that are accustomed to flooding, and they're oriented that way. We are not. And I'm saying it's one of the lessons that we have to learn from this. I have to excuse myself. I have President Obama and a scheduled call, and that's an important call, not just because he's President of the United States, but because that is money for New York, and that's important. So I'm going to excuse myself. I'm going to leave you with these other gentlemen for any additional questions. Thank you.
We were just listening to Governor Cuomo hosting a news conference on the east side of Manhattan. A lot of big news has come out in the last 20 minutes. First of all, the subways are still down. Obviously, a lot of water in the underground tubes underneath the East River, those 7 tubes that connect Brooklyn and Queens to Manhattan. But bus service, an unlimited Sunday bus service, will start at 5 p.m. And today, those fares are free. Tomorrow, it'll be a regular bus service. They tell us the buses and the subway cars are okay, but it's the actual tracks, including the tracks of the MTA Metro North, where a 40-foot boat was washed along the tracks of Metro North, making it virtually impossible for trains to come and go using that corridor. Take a look at that right now. That shows you the power of this tidal surge and just how high it came up. 15 deaths reported throughout the state of New York because of Hurricane Sandy, the superstorm as we're calling it now. He also said that the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, now known as the Hugh Carey Tunnel, along with the Holland Tunnel and the Queens Midtown Tunnel, will all remain shut down because of scenes like that. There is just too much water inside. The bridges, though, will reopen at noon today, except for the bridges going to the Rockaways. Now, the big question becomes, what happens to all that water? How do we get that water out? He says that the president told him they're going to send a national unwatering team. I've covered a ton of hurricanes and storms. I've never heard of that unit. The governor said he had never heard of that team. They're coming from wherever they're dispatched from, maybe Washington, D.C., to try to help us get some of that water out of those tunnels.
Yeah, and talking about the water, Chairman Joe Lota saying at one station the water is to the ceiling, actually. The mayor expecting MTA not to get subways up and running for 3, 4, 5 days. He really can't estimate the time. We have a lot of news coming out of New York City as well. More than 6,000 people still in 76 shelters in the city. More than 80 homes, or at least 80 homes, destroyed in Breezy Point. We do want to head back out to Long Island and Lindenhurst on the South Shore, kind of midway on the South Fork. Check in with Greg Sergel, who has seen a lot of damage there as well. Greg?
Well, Erica, you guys heard Governor Cuomo talk about the unprecedented flooding on Long Island's South Shore, and this is the area he's talking about, the area south of Montauk Highway. We're in Lindenhurst, and as you can see, some water remains in the street here, but yesterday, this water was chest deep, I'm told, and that created a huge problem that cost one resident his home. That homeowner was trying to ride out the storm on Westlake Drive, just around the bend from us, when a fire broke out inside his home. Volunteers from the Lindenhurst Fire Department responded to the blaze, but the water around the man's house was so deep, as I said, chest deep, that the firefighters had to pack up and leave. They could not stay to try and put out the fire. They returned here today when the blaze kicked up again, but by this time it was too late. The home was completely gutted. The two-story home was basically just a shell of itself. The homeowner was too distraught to talk to us, and one of the fire captains who did told us it was probably the most frustrating thing he's ever had to experience as a firefighter.
We've had quite a few of these last night. The electric was on. The gentleman was in his house. His box got wet. Sparks started flying. Next thing you know, his house was up. And with the wind, the house was gone within an hour. And it was very difficult for us to get here. We were here last night. We were here for a couple hours, but we were chest deep in water. We had to back out.
As that fire captain told me, we're not used to walking away from fires, but we had to last night because our safety was at stake. And that just shows the frustration this storm created for a lot of first responders. Again, it cost one Lindenhurst man his home. Back to you guys.
Greg, we're going to ask you a quick question. We only have 30 seconds. Do people have enough supplies there? We know there's a problem with some of the drinking water throughout Long Island, along with the power outages.
It appears folks have the supplies, Tom. They're here milling about, speaking to each other, their neighbors, so that doesn't seem to be a problem in this area. Of course, it is in other parts of the island, like Long Beach and Mill Neck, that have water issues, but none of that here right now.
Greg, thank you so much for that report. We do have to take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more of our continuous coverage of Hurricane Sandy.
Congratulations on refinancing. A few minor additional charges. Appraisal fees, title fees, processing fees, my fee, my daughter's fee, my son's fee. Hold it. That's ridiculous. Hi, I'm Jerry Lifkin, chairman and...
or low copays for doctors. Свобода.